introduction very simple. So, Roy Norman from the Defiance County Farm Bureau.
Thank you, Amy. Good to be with you today. Thank you for having me. This is a great time of year where we celebrate agriculture, National Agriculture Week. We're seeing a lot of FFA programs starting to host their banquets. And we're busy anticipating what the future might bring here for 2019. 2018 was a very difficult year for agriculture across the country and here in Ohio, so our prayers go out to our farmers and hoping for a more prosperous year this year. My name is Roy Norman. I serve as the organization director for the Fulton, Henry, Williams, and Defiance County Farm Bureaus. Our office is in Pettisville. If any of you have been to Pettisville Meats, the meat store there in Pettisville, we're right there next to Pettisville Meats. We serve about close to 4,000 members in the 4-county area. Amy was asking me how are we funded. We are not government funded. We are a volunteer membership organization. Membership is the lifeblood of Farm Bureau. Dues in Ohio range, depending on the county you live in, anywhere from $75 to $85 per household. So, you know, if there's husband and wife, it's only one membership that covers both people. Other revenue to the Farm Bureau would come through, we can apply for grants from foundations to do projects. Interesting story about the book that we purchased. Back in the 90s, we found that local libraries were having a tough time putting agriculture stories in the libraries. Our students were unable to find books that they could read that would tell them about agriculture. So the American Farm Bureau started to present an award each year, what was called the Outstanding Children's Literature Award for an agriculture book. And that is the 2019 winner from the American Farm Bureau. So what we do is we purchase those books and we put one of those books in every school library and every public library in the 4-county areas. So if any of you have kids or grandkids in the elementary libraries, chances are there's one of now about, sometimes we've done 2 a year, close to 30 books in those libraries that we know are dealing with agriculture. So it's our way to give back to the community and help the libraries that are sometimes under budget constraints and sometimes just don't know where to find books about agriculture for that. So that's the story behind the book. My job is to serve as a liaison between the 4-county farm bureaus and the Ohio Farm Bureau Federation. I have a board of trustees in each county. Averages about 12 members in each county. Brian Westbaum is our current Defiance County president. Most of you know Brian. I know Roger knows Brian. And so we meet once a month and plan activities. Amy was asking me what's going on and are we busy right now. We are wrapping up our membership campaign, which ends March 31st. And then we'll be transitioning into summer and fall activities, believe it or not. We're already planning a trip to the Stone Lab on Lake Erie for a group of 30 farmers to go up and talk to Dr. Winslow about water quality of the lake. And that'll be coming up in June. Amy has passed out a flyer. I was intending to show you a little video this morning, but I forgot my laptop. I plugged it in to charge it this morning and left it at the office. But this flyer right here is called Breakfast on the Farm. Here's a good one. Breakfast on the Farm is a project that started up in Wisconsin. We've seen our friends to the north in Michigan. They host about 5 or 6 of these events a year. In 2015 was our first event here in Ohio. We had it in Swampy at the Sandland Dairy Farm. That's about a 700 head dairy. So we cooked breakfast on the dairy farm and hosted tours throughout the farm to give people a first-hand look at the farm. We had over 3,000 people attend breakfast, a free breakfast that morning back in June of 2015. We had over 400 volunteers ranging from FFA students to retired farmers. And the goal there was to put people in contact with the farm to see how crops and how milk is produced, and give people a better understanding and change their minds and their perceptions, if you will. So a lot of people that came to that event were out of the metropolitan areas: Toledo, Bowling Green, Adrian, Michigan. We had several people come from out of state that were here visiting friends and came to the event. We did a survey before the event because you had to online register, so we could email a survey out. And we were curious about what the perception was of agriculture, especially with water quality. And then we did a survey the day of the event, and then we did a survey 2 months after the event. And what we found was we changed people's views of agriculture. What happened, that was in around 2015, what happened up in Toledo around that time? Anybody remember? The whole algae bloom and the mishandling of that at the water treatment facility, and then lead to a lot of blame on agriculture for that. And so what we found is people that came to the breakfast on the farm, they came there thinking that agriculture was a big part of the problem, like they heard in the media. But when they left there, they understood that this family raises their kids there. We need clean water for the cows to produce quality milk. And they do a lot of conservation practices, which you were mentioning there earlier. A lot of conservation practices on that farm to protect water. So the reason I tell you this is because on this flyer we are hosting our second breakfast on the farm in June. These are expensive, time-consuming, very volunteer-heavy events. So that's why we haven't done one since 2015. Our goal is to someday have one here in Defiance County and pull people from Defiance, Fort Wayne, maybe as far away as Indianapolis. So we expect this year we're pushing for 4,000 people. We had 4,000 registered, close to it, for the last event in 2015, but we had a little bit of rain that morning in the Toledo area. It was still raining when the event started, and I think that scared off probably 400 or 500 people. But it is a rain or shine event, and so hope you put that on your calendars and take the time to swing out there. Bring the kids, bring the grandkids, and encourage folks in your community, in the Rotary, in your church groups to attend that event. There are 3 families involved with this particular farm. And if you don't know, dairy farmers have been pretty tough here in the last couple of years. Just in Ohio, we've lost close to 100 dairy farms in the last year. There are only 4 dairy farms left in Fulton County. So it's trying times, but these 3 farm families that work together got a really nice operation. I know that the public will be impressed when they get there. I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we do. You also have a flyer that talks about Ohio Farm Bureau's water quality status. That's an issue we hear in the news quite a bit here lately. There was this thing that was just passed up in Toledo back in February. It's called the Lake Erie Bill of Rights. First time that we can remember that an object like a lake was given a Bill of Rights. It seems to be completely unconstitutional, and in fact, one of our farmers down from the Custer area, Mark Dravis, has already filed suit in federal court against the city of Toledo for that very reason, saying it was unconstitutional. Also, interestingly, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife has also filed suit against the city of Toledo for dumping raw sewage and PCBs and things into the Ottawa River for several years, so that's interesting. What the Bill of Rights says is this, is that, and why it's unconstitutional, is it says anybody that lives within the city of Toledo has the right to sue anybody in the lake watershed, whether that's Ontario, Canada, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, wherever. So somebody inside the city of Toledo can sue somebody over here in Hicksville and say, Roger, you're putting stuff into the river that's polluting Lake Erie. Even though Roger has to abide by rules and regulations from the Ohio Department of Agriculture and the EPA, he could have a nutrient management permit, all these kind of things that we have to go through, conservation tillage and whatnot. They could sue him. But Roger can't sue anybody in the city of Toledo for dumping raw sewage into the lake. So that's where you get into a little bit of the unconstitutionality of it. So poses a significant threat to agriculture and small business because you could sue any business, you could sue government. Interestingly, somebody in the city of Toledo could sue the city of Toledo itself. And so it makes absolutely no sense. This is all being driven out of a legal group out of Pennsylvania that runs around the country trying to stir up fear and create these kind of things. And so they were able to get it on the ballot. Only 9% of the voters registered voted that day in February. 9%. So that's what we're dealing with right now on water quality. This brochure talks a lot about what Ohio Farm Bureau does on water quality and what our farmers do. A lot of great stories out there. This Bill of Rights for the lake, however, has a spin-off effect because some of you have heard about the Meshendo Aquifer. That covers just a little sliver of Defiance, I think, maybe, but mostly Williams County and up into Michigan and Indiana. A little bit of Fulton County. And so now that group thinks that they need a Bill of Rights too for the Meshendo Aquifer. And so they are gathering signatures for a petition to put that on the ballot here very soon. One of the frustrating things is these things cost money. The city of Toledo spent $243,000 to put this issue on the ballot in February. And they knowingly did so, knowing that it was going to get challenged in court and very likely would be found to be unconstitutional. It doesn't make any sense why a waste of money, but that's the kind of things we're up against. Roger asked me when I came in about Nebraska. How many of you have heard about the troubles in Nebraska right now? So major storms hit here about 10 days ago. They had about, in South Dakota and Nebraska, they had about 20 inches of snow on the ground. Then the high temps hit, all the rivers and such were frozen. High temps hit. At the same time, a lot of rain hit, like several inches of rain. Ice jams broke loose, destroyed dams on some rivers. I've seen pictures with 20-foot deep, now imagine this, in this room, 20 feet deep, thick ice, 3 football fields wide, a mile long, going through valleys in Nebraska, wiping out everything in its path. Roads, bridges, gone. One of the ranchers out there lost 300 cows in one swoop, swept away. Pictures coming out of there of, this is calving season for cattle farmers and ranchers. Piles of 20, 30 calves that didn't make it. Farmers happen to take calves away from the cows and put them in the upper levels of their barns to keep them away from being swept away. Farmers with stored grain and grain bins and such that were flooded, now they can no longer use that corn because it's been exposed to toxins and stuff with the floodwaters. So, in talking to Roger, there is a group leaving from the Fulton County Fairgrounds Sunday at 2 o'clock. Right now we're up to about 20 trucks and trailers that'll be heading out to Nebraska to take supplies out to the families and the ranchers out there. So we're busy this week. I was talking to Amy, we had a couple meetings this morning on it, was gathering some money. So we're busy collecting money, collecting hay, straw, wood shavings, milk replacer, things like that for the farms. And then there's a complete list of towns that are still underwater that need help as well. And anything you can imagine, first aid material, food, just endless list of very tragic event. But we are preparing, so if you know somebody that wants to contribute to that, they can contribute directly to the Nebraska Farm Bureau. Just Google Nebraska Farm Bureau and they'll take you to the link for their relief. If you want to send material out, if you know somebody who has extra hay or bedding or feed sources like alfalfa pellets, milk replacer, those kind of things, we use these things called lick tubs, for protein tubs for cattle. If you know somebody that can supply those. If you know somebody that just says, here's a gas card, give it to one of the truckers because it's, you're looking at a lot of fuel costs to get out to Nebraska and back. Just call our office in Pettisville. We'd be happy to work with you on lining that up. But a big effort. Now We're not the only group leaving. There's a group from southern Michigan that'll be leaving in about 10 days. There's a group from the Mansfield, Norwalk area that left yesterday from Nebraska. And I was telling Roger, probably by the time it's all said and done, you'll probably see 8 to 10 convoys heading out to Nebraska, South Dakota. Snow in South Dakota was a little bit more than the rains and the floods for them, but imagine driving down the road around here over by the fairgrounds and looking at one of those buildings, and then picture that being completely covered in snow with the blizzard conditions that they had. They were digging out whole barns because they were in the snow, and the animals in jeopardy of suffocating. We talked a little bit, I mentioned before, about farm income. Since 2009, we've seen farm income across the country drop by about $60 billion. At the same time, we've seen farm debt increase by probably double that. So we are in some, while the economy seems to be doing really good right now, the farm economy is slowing down, and we're taking some hits here. One of those things we're taking hits on is, you see in the news, is trade. Trade is very important to agriculture. Sometimes trade for agriculture is tied to the strength of the dollar, which is very strong right now, which is good, but it also can hurt us on some of our trade stuff with agriculture. So these are the things we're pay a lot of attention to at the federal level with the administration and working on the importance of trade. So when you hear these things in the media, it really comes home with agriculture. We rely a lot on our products being exported out of this country. We're lucky to live in the country where we've got the safest, most abundant, low-cost food supply in the world. But we can't forget that how we get that is with our farmers. And so we continue to look for policy that helps to strengthen our farms and help them prosper. With that, Amy, I'd be happy to take any general questions. I could talk all day about agriculture, but happy. Just a little bit of background. I graduated from Ohio State. In my family, we live over in Wasion. Our home farm is by Norwalk, and we were active in showing cattle and pigs at the county fair and the Ohio State fair. So we stayed pretty engaged in agriculture. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the third thing I gave you was just a flyer about the benefits of Farm Bureau. Don't know how many of you are members, but we offer a lot of financial savings to our members, not just our farmers, because you don't have to be a farmer to be a member of the Farm Bureau. You all have a stake in agriculture because you all eat, I assume, 3 meals a day. You all enjoy food like we had here today. So you all have a stake in agriculture being successful. But any questions? General?
Concern on growing marijuana in the state. I know there's been some discussion on the state level of trying to find places and opportunities to put production facilities in. I know even around this Northwest quarter, they've been kind of snooping around.
As far as the Farm Bureau goes on the quote-unquote marijuana issue, it's a very tough issue for us. Farm Bureau is a very conservative organization, so it's been very tough. At the same time, the farm economy has been very tough, and sometimes our farmers look for ways, whether it's wind energy or solar or the opportunity to raise marijuana. Personally, I'm not a big fan of it. One thing we tend to be a bigger fan of, and we just saw it pass in the most recent farm bill at the federal level, and that is the ability to raise hemp. So not the traditional marijuana, but to raise hemp. I saw a lady, the new director of agriculture, Dorothy Polanda. She was in Fulton County last week, and she was speaking about growing hemp. So the feds have put it in the Farm Bureau that we could do it. Kentucky, Wisconsin, several other states have already passed state legislation, and they're already growing hemp. It is a good product. Replaces it's a good source of paper and a lot of products used. Dorothy Polanda also mentioned that her grandfather, I believe it was, his World War II jacket was made out of hemp. I didn't know that, so I didn't know that that was another use for it. So we are pushing for legislation in Ohio to allow farmers to raise hemp for that commercial use. But that marijuana thing is a tough deal, a tough issue for them. Good question.
When I was a youngster, that's many years ago, it was quite the thing to have milkweed pods that we would collect for World War II, and it would be giving us, each of us, a onion-type sack that you could fill up, and it was about 3 foot tall. Is there anything with milkweed that is a plus or is worked by the Farm Bureau at all?
That's a good question. So milkweed, what you see is, if any of you follow it, nature stuff, the monarch butterflies depend on that milkweed as a source of nutrition to help them in their life. And so what you've seen is under past farm bills, there's programs called conservation programs such as CRP programs and things like that. So for the farmers that have land in that, there is now a requirement at some level, maybe Roger knows personally, but we have to plant some level of things like milkweed is one of the options, which it's also a noxious weed too. We don't like to see it in our farm fields either, so it's a tough thing. So moderation is the key. You know, you could use some milkweed out there for the butterflies, but you don't want to see whole fields of it running rampant either, and forcing us to use more herbicides to control that. I do have some milkweed in my own pasture, just because my youngest daughter likes to see butterflies, so, and it does attract them. Question? Anything else about anything you see on the news and you go, what's the real story behind that?
Radio said this morning that we sold a record amount of soybeans to China here this last year. I think I heard it right.
Well, China is a big buyer of U.S. soybeans, no doubt about that. And again, it all comes back to trade and how important it is to us. And we were basically the bully on the block back in until we saw the embargoes happen under Carter a long time ago. And so that opened up South America production because people will find a way to get what they need. And so there's this ongoing battle still today with China. Are they going to buy our soybeans because we have tremendous infrastructure and ways to get it, or are they going to go down and deal with South America? And then so you see South America investing more heavily in infrastructure to be able to load those soybeans and get them out. So it is tough. It's an ongoing thing, I think, with this administration, give and take. But the bottom line is they still need to feed the people. And we're going to have 9 billion people on this planet here within another 15, 20 years. And so we've got to continue to find a way to feed them. And that's why it's so important to step back, take a look at things, and just like your questions about NP&K, you know, defer to the experts, and really the experts are our farmers and our farm families. And I just ask everybody to remember that regardless of the size of the operation, our families are being raised there. So I want my girls drinking health, safe, clean water. I don't want them being exposed to anything. So, and every farm family is like that. We do it because it's a great way of life, and it's a great way to raise your kids. So, but soybeans a big issue, and so when we saw the trade fight start last spring, there was actually the administration offered up what they call over here, right? There's nicknames for it, Trump bucks or whatever you want to call it, for soybeans to offset the losses that our farmers had for that.